Hello and good afternoon to everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is Alexandria and Angie today with Navigate HCR. We are excited to bring you the next update of what's going on with the new legislation surrounding the COVID-19 craziness, as well as what's kind of coming down the line and any questions and concerns that you might have. We're happy to see you all on the line with us today. Just a few housekeeping things here before we get started. Everybody, if you could please make sure, if you have any questions, please let us know. There is a chat box located in your upper right-hand corner. Make sure all your questions go there, as that is the only way that I'm able to see them. And then as soon as we have the ability to get to your questions, I know you'll have a lot there, especially at the end. We'll get to those and go through those, and anything else that we can support you guys with, we'd be happy to do so. So again, we're really happy to have you on, and if you have anything that you'd like us to address in upcoming episodes or webinars, please feel free to send us an email. Let us know. All of our contact information will be at the end of the presentation, and at the end of the presentation, you will, of course, get a copy of the presentation and where we are posting all of these recorded webinars on our Navigate HCR public page. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Angie on the line here, and she's going to go ahead and get us started and talk to us a little bit about what's going on. Angie is our national speaker and educator, and I like to call her our guru of compliance. She loves everything and anything having to do with compliance. So go ahead and take it away, Angie.
Awesome. Thank you, Alex. Welcome, everybody. Today, I want to just review a little bit of detail around both new pieces of legislation. We don't have a lot of content today. Things I think are finally starting to slow down with regard to guidance and updates and things like that. So hopefully we'll have lots of time for your questions. I was out on the SBA website and wanted to just bring to your attention a few pieces. So with regard to the Paycheck Protection Program, again, this is something we talked about in our prior webinar, definitely something that business owners should be taking advantage of. Our EIDL loans and the advances that you can get. I know when you go out there to apply for some of these economic injury disaster loans that they can take a bit of time. The great thing about this $10,000 advance is it is usually available to you within about 3 days of submitting your EIDL loan. So you can get this advance. I'm happy to say that it's to come out within 3 days of you applying, because I know that a lot of you have been struggling business-wise for a good couple of weeks. So this legislation couldn't come quick enough. So please be sure to check out the SBA website and make sure to take advantage of the items out there that are here to benefit you. Certainly there are links out there to find local assistance and what lenders participate in these types of SBA loans. Alex? There we go. So with regard to the Paycheck Protection Program, keep in mind that this loan can be fully forgiven as long as you're using the funds for payroll costs, interest on your mortgage, rent, utilities. Loan payments can be deferred for 6 months for any piece that isn't forgiven. You do not have to put up any collateral or guarantee for this particular piece, and the government nor the lenders are going to be charging any additional fees. Forgiveness certainly is based on how quickly you're rehiring or maintaining your employees and certainly maintaining those salary levels. Forgiveness will be reduced if full-time headcounts decline or if salaries or wages decrease. So I know we talked last time regarding the CARES Act made an amendment to the Families First Act with regard to eligible employees. It did put a provision in there and modify the definition for rehire. So we know that a lot of you had no choice but to do some layoffs and hour reductions and things like that. So certainly we're hoping that this particular piece will allow you to bring those employees back to what they were prior to all of the corona craziness, as I like to call it. So let's talk about who qualifies and interest rates and all of that good stuff regarding these particular areas. So for the EIDL, to qualify, you need to be a small business, a cooperative, ESOP, or tribal business with 500 or fewer employees. Be aware of joint employer rules in this. Or if you're an individual who operates under a sole proprietorship with or without employees or as an independent contractor, private, nonprofit, or small agricultural cooperative, and certainly because your business was directly affected by COVID-19. For the Paycheck Protection Program, to be eligible for that, small business or nonprofit with 500 or fewer employees, 501c19 veteran organizations or tribal concerns that meet SBA size standards. Certainly you can check those standards out on SBA's website. Sole proprietors, independent contractors, businesses in the food or hospitality industry. Remember, that's based on NAIC code. And they're relaxing that size limitation. We know restaurants tend to have multiple locations, so they are doing a bit of a relaxation on those rules and looking at eligible on a per location basis. So that's pretty cool. Interest rates, sorry, Alex, not quite done there. Back up one slide, thank you. Interest rates are very low, which is amazing. Repayment periods, so for the EIDL, that can be out to 30 years if need be, and the Paycheck Protection, 2 years for any balances that are not forgiven. So hopefully if you are applying for the Paycheck Protection, the majority of what you're applying for can be forgiven. So no worries about repaying on that. Okay, Alex, now you can switch for me. Thank you. So let's switch over to some of the Q&A questions that are being published basically daily with the various pieces of legislation. And I thought some of these questions I wanted to go through because they're pretty significant. So both for the CARES Act and the FFCRA, we're going to look at some of the new Q&A. So first one, may an eligible employer receive both the employee retention credit and a small business interruption loan under the Paycheck Protection Program that is authorized under the CARES Act? This is going to be a key piece for you guys. There are so many different programs, tax credits, loans, grants, all of these things are available. It's a matter of determining which one is actually right for you, for your business, your situation, your employees, your circumstances. It's going to be critical that you seek counsel from your tax professional, your legal counsel, to try to make sure you're applying for the proper pieces, because again, there's so many varieties right now. It'll be important to know which one works for you. So for this particular question, the answer is no. You cannot receive the employee retention credit if you're also getting the small business interruption loan under the Paycheck Protection Program. So again, let's make sure that you're really researching and seeking advice on what is the best options for your business. Alex? Something else I found that I thought was interesting, and I really wanted to point it out to you guys, is there are many states who have enacted their own state legislation for these coronavirus relief programs. So if you see your state listed here, now this was of yesterday, as of yesterday, I don't know if anything new has happened today yet, but these are states that have enacted their own relief programs. So please be sure to check out what your state is doing, if anything. It's hard to say whether some state programs will work in conjunction with federal programs, which one would be a better fit for you. So please be sure, if you're in one of these states, that you're double checking what they're doing. I skimmed through a few of these states when I was putting this together. Some are pretty descriptive as to what they're offering in the way of relief programs. Some are focused on restaurants and hospitality. Others are just small business in general. So please be sure to take a look at what your state is doing, as well as whether there is any pending programs going on right now. I was pleasantly surprised that this many states have done their own thing, which is great. So hopefully between your state and the federal programs that there will be something out there, or a couple somethings out there that will benefit you and your business to get you back rolling as close to pre-coronavirus as possible. Alex? Let's talk a little bit about the FFCRA. There are even more question and answers posted out there. So if you check out DOL.gov and click on their coronavirus, right on their home screen, it will take you into a lot of good pieces. So last time we talked, which was Thursday, there were, I think, 59 questions. I believe there's around 74 out there now. So I'm happy to see that they are getting questions and posting those answers out there. I'm sure what they're doing is collecting questions that are asked over and over and posting those out there to try to assist all of us with some more detailed guidance. So let's go ahead and go through a couple of these new questions. I'm an employee. I became ill with COVID-19 symptoms, decided to quarantine myself for 2 weeks and then return to work. I do not seek a medical diagnosis or the advice of a healthcare provider. Can I get paid for those 2 weeks under FFCRA? The DOL's answer is generally no. If you become ill with COVID symptoms, you may take paid sick leave under the FFCRA only to seek a medical diagnosis, or if a healthcare provider otherwise advises you to self-quarantine. I've had a ton of questions around this. You know, a lot of employers are getting asked, you know, can I take this paid sick leave? Can I take the FMLA expansion? There's a whole lot of questions around that, and every single employee situation could be vastly different. So it's really important that, you know, you take almost like a checklist approach. And I prepared this Monday for one of my current FMLA clients. And we really designed almost like a flow chart of, you know, step by step, how to determine the best approach for every employee as they come to you. So the essential flow is question number one: is this employee essential or non-essential? Yes or no? And then it leads you to the next question or possible solution at that point. You know, I think with all of the additional rules and regulations, it's going to be important to have some sort of checklist handy that you're documenting for each employee. What steps did you take as an employer to make sure that you are advising your employees properly, you are doing the proper paperwork, collecting the proper documentation. If you would like to see a copy of the checklist I put together or the flowchart I put together, please let us know. Happy to share that with you. Again, in lieu of guidance or processes and things like that, as a third-party administrator for FMLA, we often have to create our own pieces to assist our clients out there. So if you want a copy of that, let us know. Happy to share that. So let me go ahead and continue through the guidance from the DOL. Second part of that is if you test positive for the virus associated with COVID-19 or advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine, you may continue to take the paid sick leave. You may not take paid sick leave under FFCRA if you unilaterally decide to self-quarantine for an illness without medical advice. So this is going to be key for you employers out there. If you have an employee that's saying, hey, I was exposed and I feel like I need to self-quarantine, keep in mind they've got to seek advice and directives from a healthcare provider. At the end of the day, guys, you're going to have documentation to be able to take the proper tax credits for paying for this leave. So, just be well aware of, what you're going to end up needing to have and to display or submit to justify taking those tax credits. Alex, go ahead to the next one. Next question, when am I eligible for paid sick leave to care for someone who is subject to a quarantine or isolation order? DOL guidance is you may take paid sick leave to care for an individual who, as a result of being subject to a quarantine or isolation order, is unable to care for him or herself and depends on you for care, and if providing care prevents you from working and from teleworking. So remember, a lot of these pieces with regard to the emergency paid sick leave and the FMLA expansion is if you're unable to work or telework, that means working from home. If you're able to work from home, then those pieces are not going to apply to employees. So let's go ahead and continue. Furthermore, you may only take paid sick leave to care for an individual who genuinely needs your care. Such an individual includes an immediate family member or someone who regularly resides in your home. You may also take paid sick leave to care for someone if your relationship creates an expectation that you would care for the person in a quarantine or self-quarantine situation, and that individual depends on you for care during the quarantine or self-quarantine. You may not take paid sick leave to care for someone with whom you have no relationship, nor can you take paid sick leave to care for someone who does not expect or depend on your care during his or her quarantine or self-quarantine. Now, the reason I wanted to pull this particular newer question out and focus on it today is because remember originally, and I know we've done so many of these webinars and dug into so many different areas, but originally the first text of the bill before it was passed had mentioned family member. Once the bill was passed, they changed to an individual. Well, certainly when you say individual, that's going to require some clarification. So I'm glad to see in the Q&A they have provided us some clarification, because essentially the context of the law was not to, allow you to just go take care of anyone, that there's got to be some sort of relationship factor here or someone that's residing with you. So I hope that brings a little bit of clarity. I think that you may have some situations which are definitely going to require some guidance. if you have an employee who happens to be a grandparent, and that grandparent is asking for time off to take care of a grandchild, that's going to take some digging and some guidance and a lot of questions to that employee who's the grandparent before we can look at saying they're authorized to take some sort of sick leave. So especially if the grandchild is not in their household. So I know I've seen situations where the grandparent, who may be your employee, wants to take off to care for their grandchildren that are not in the household because the parent is an emergency responder or a healthcare provider and has to go into work. So those situations get really tricky, and I can't even say right now whether we'd be able to cover that with the paid sick leave. I am going to take a stab first without doing additional research and say probably not based on this new guidance. I'm diligently watching for that particular situation in the Q&A and in other guidance that I've received to see how they would really address that, because it really is kind of a distinct situation that I'm sure at least some of our folks listening will have that come into play. Alex, go ahead to the next one. Next one, may I take paid sick leave or expanded FMLA to care for my child who is 18 years or older? DOL's guidance is it depends. Under the FFCRA, paid sick leave and expanded FMLA include leave to care for one or more of your children when his or her school or place of care is closed or child care provider is unavailable due to the COVID-related reasons. This leave may only be taken to care for your non-disabled child if he or she is under the age of 18. If your child is 18 years of age or older with a disability and cannot care for him or herself due to that disability, then you could look at taking these types of leave. So an interesting spin on this question. Certainly there are certain ages where, you know, we as parents will allow our kids to kind of take care of themselves. I know for me, my youngest is a senior in high school. He is 18. So certainly I don't need to care for him while his school is closed. Now, in the situation where it was reversed and we go back to that prior question, my son would fall into the individual when it comes to if my son were to contract the virus and became very sick. As his mom, I would absolutely be expected to take care of him and could utilize these benefits if I could not work from home and care for my son if he had the virus and was very ill. So, you know, remember the FMLA expansion is for when your child's place of school or care is closed. The sick leave is a little different. That could be if, you know, your child who's over the age of 17 or 18 becomes ill. So two different situations, and remember, paid sick leave and FMLA expansion have different reasons to be able to use those. Alex, let's go ahead and take the next one. I pulled this question out because I had seen some commentary somewhere. I cannot recall where at this moment, but I do a ton of research on what's going on in the world, not just my own state, and I've seen this before. At some point, it'll come back to me where I saw it, but I wanted to bring this up. So the question was, may I take paid sick leave or expanded FMLA if I'm receiving workers' comp or temporary disability benefits through an employer or state-provided plan? DOL's guidance is, in general, no, unless you are able to return to light duty before taking leave. If you receive workers' comp or temporary disability benefits because you are unable to work you cannot also take paid sick leave or expanded FMLA. However, if you were able to return to light duty and a qualifying reason prevents you from working, you may take the paid sick or expanded FMLA as the situation warrants. So in this situation, if you're already out on workers' comp from something prior to coronavirus or disability prior to coronavirus, these two pieces in the FFCRA are to provide some benefit to those employees who were still actively working. And essentially, they are not trying to allow people to double dip multiple avenues of income. All right, last one, and then we're going to go ahead and take some questions. May I take paid sick leave or expanded FMLA under the FFCRA if I am on an employer-approved leave of absence? I have had this question multiple times from several of my clients, so I was thrilled to see this guidance. DOL says it depends on whether your leave of absence is voluntary or mandatory. If your leave of absence is voluntary, you may end your leave of absence and begin taking paid sick leave or expanded FMLA if you have a qualifying reason. And again, remember, that's if you're unable to work or telework. I know a lot of employers have made some significant changes in their workforce to allow way more people to be able to work from home. It goes on to say, however, you may not take paid sick leave or expanded FMLA if your leave of absence is mandatory. This is because it is the mandatory leave of absence and not a qualifying reason that prevents you from being able to work. So I think that this particular kind of situation is going to garner far more guidance coming up. So certainly, it's kind of why I put together flowcharts and checklists. You really have to cross a lot of T's and dot a lot of I's to get to a final verdict for an employee. And I know that many employers have employees that were on leave prior to coronavirus. So if you were, out on leave because you had a child, or you were out on leave because you had a surgery, or you were out on any other kind of employer-sponsored leave, all of those different things, it really has to be looked at on a case-by-case scenario, and certainly follow the guidance based on what scenario you're looking at. So that was the last piece I really wanted to throw out to you. Again, DOL.gov, they have, oh gosh, what did I say earlier? I think 74 questions now. It was 59 on Thursday, so they are actively updating that. Certainly you can ask us questions here, which I will stop in just a moment and have Alex read those to me, but at any time, feel free to go out to our microsite that we created strictly for Q&A. It's navigatehcr.answerbase.com. Ask your questions out there. At any time they come up, we're happy to try to assist. And certainly search that Q&A database that we've already been populating. So every question we get from prior webinars, we're posting out there and posting the answers. So you can certainly search that like your own knowledge base, as well as go ahead and pop a question in there. So with that, I will take a breath and a drink of water. And Alex, what do we have out there?
Yeah, so we've got, I think, 12 questions, and I'll just start at the top. So does the Paycheck Protection have a condition that you cannot reduce the employee's salary?
Yes, essentially. I mean, it doesn't say you can't reduce it, but it's going to eliminate some of your forgiveness that you get on the Paycheck Protection Program. So be very careful, and just as long as you understand that when you're applying for that, they're going to look at asking for documentation from you as to what those employees were paid prior to coronavirus. And if they see a reduction in salary, that could limit some of the forgiveness that you get back. Because remember, the goal is to assist you to maintain your payroll as it was prior to the pandemic.
Okay. And the next question is, if I have a small business and only the owner has health insurance, is that part of the loan forgiveness?
So that's something that would probably need a little more guidance, even for me to seek for you. There are pieces in here. I think it's going to depend on how it is you pay yourself. Are you a W-2 on your business, or are you taking draws? It's how you treat yourself as the owner. Do you have just an individual health plan? I think you're going to have to seek the guidance of a tax professional based on how your business is set up financially, to determine, how they're going to look at that, or what process you would need to take, and certainly which program would work best for you if you are independent and don't have anyone else on your health plan.
Okay, let's see. Want to ask if you have charts and a chart that assists employers with the programs that are available. We do. I already answered that. Doesn't the Fed benefit come first before the state's offering?
That's a great question. I did not dig into the various states in depth to see what exactly they're doing. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg here? It's hard to say. Everything is so very, very, very new. I've not really seen anything specific that said you have to go through the Fed first. I think it would be wise to take a look at what your state is doing and what their guidance is. The state level may say, here's what we have available for you, but only if you don't qualify on the Fed side. Or here's what we have, but we need you to do the Fed first, or start here and then move to Fed. I think that that's going to be based on states as well. I've not seen where there is any guidance from the Fed that we have to go through their stuff first.
Okay. And then I had a couple asks for the flow chart sample.
Mm-hmm.
And then you may only take paid sick leaves up to 80 hours, correct?
That is correct. For full-time employees, it's up to 80 hours. For part-time, it's up to the number of hours they would have in a 2-week period, traditionally.
Okay. We applied already for the loan. 8 days and have passed, but we have not heard back. Is that normal?
Okay, so you applied for the loan. I guess my follow-up would be, did you apply for the advance or just the loan? But aside from that, I would imagine it's going to take some time, which is why they allow for this advance. The SBA lenders are going to be inundated, and I've seen quite a bit of material stating that this was all released, but the SBA and their lenders aren't necessarily prepared for all the new pieces that they have to get into place. So I fear that these are going to take some time. I would reach back out to your lender and ask them what they anticipate being a standard wait time before you hear something back. Surely they received their own guidance from SBA, letting them know, what is going to be maybe some of the common holdups in getting your response back. But I would say if you signed up for the EIDL, utilize the option of the advance. That's supposed to come within 3 days. Now, I don't know if that'll really happen because, like I said, they're really going to be inundated.
Awesome. I've heard the inundation is just what's overwhelming everybody, from my understanding. How does the furlough and an FFCRA work? I was placed on a furlough, mandatory unpaid leave of absence. Can I also collect FFCRA?
You know, in general, I would say no, because this wasn't a voluntary thing for you. If you're speaking as an employee, a furlough is a mandatory leave. So what you would want to do is seek unemployment at this point.
Let's see. Next, if someone has tested positive and is entitled to the New York DBL and an employer STD plan, does that integrate? And if so, which pays first? Plus, can an employer deduct that in a forgivable loan?
That's a good question. I think I would need to know, with the New York DBL, is that something that is paid by a disability type of policy that you have to pay into? Same with the short-term disability. Disability is normally paid out through an insurance contract, not necessarily coming out of your payroll and wages. Employer deductions would be based on, you know, your payroll expense. So unless these two items are in some way paid through your physical payroll to that employee, I would say no. But that's a great area that I've seen zero guidance on so far. So again, it would be based on, is that an insurance contract where the insurance contract is actually paying the benefit, or is it something that you are required based on the state rules and regulations that you pay payroll?
Okay, and the last one that I have as of right now is you can get an advance and the PPP loan.
So there are two different pieces. The Paycheck Protection Program is one. The EIDL loan is the second piece. You can only get the advance on the EIDL loan.
Okay, that looks about all that we have, Angie. Is there anything else? Anybody else? Last call before we kind of close it down. Nope, that's all I got,
Perfect.
Angie.
Perfect. Thank you guys so much for attending. As we ease up on the guidance that's available to us, you know, these will become shorter, but certainly leave more room for the live Q&A segment. We'll continue with our next webinar Thursday this week. We'll give you ample time to know whether we're going to continue into the next week or not. It's really going to depend if there's anything new and exciting that we feel that you would want to know and maybe have the ability to ask us questions on. Certainly, as always, follow us on social media. You're going to get the latest and greatest on social media before we get to one of the two webinars during the week. So keep an eye on that. Don't hesitate to reach out to us. Use our Q&A microsite. We're going to keep that open as long as possible, you know, just as a way to try to support you guys out there in any way we can. We're certainly in this together. As I've seen the new hashtag, I really believe it, and it's wonderful to see so many working together for a common good. So if we can help you in any way, let us know. Thanks for attending. Alex will get the slide deck sent out, as well as some of the other resources we've put together for those that have asked. So thank you so much for attending, and we'll talk to you on Thursday. Have a great day. Stay safe out there.
Make sure you guys take a look and watch your email. I will send out a follow-up thank you note for all of you who have joined. please feel free to share our recordings as well as any other content. And you have any questions, let us know. And I'm going to follow up, like Angie said, with all of the content as well as links to where the recordings are located. And we look forward to seeing you all again on Thursday. Make sure to watch our social media. We post all of our updates and reminders about what's happening when. And thanks for coming on, and we'll see you soon.